Caitlin Clark has a new State Farm commercial. And folks, we have major news coming out of the WNBA about this too. So, let's talk about the 2026 negotiations, because it's really the only thing anyone in the basketball world is talking about right now. On one side of things, State Farm just dropped this brand new commercial, and the internet is going absolutely crazy over it. It's got Caitlin Clark, and she's right there sharing the screen with an NBA legend, Chris Paul. And you better believe it's making some serious waves across both leagues. The ad itself is super short, only about 30 seconds, but the reactions? Those are going to be echoing for a long, long time. Then, at the exact same moment, this explosive story breaks wide open about the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement. And let me tell you, it completely exposes how the league has been playing some serious games with the salary numbers they've been throwing out there to the public. We're going to dig into every single detail of both stories. But before we get into all that, I have to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. Why do you think some people just can't handle seeing Caitlin Clark succeed like this? I'm talking about on the court and off the court. Is it just straight up jealousy? Or is it something more complicated than that? Go ahead and drop what you really think down in the comments below. Okay, so let's get into what just happened, because once again, Caitlin Clark is out here living completely rent-free in so many people's minds. About 24 hours ago, the insurance giant State Farm released its newest commercial. The star of the show is supposedly the legendary Chris Paul. Now, you got to get this context. Chris Paul has been the guy in State Farm commercials for what feels like forever. It's been almost 17 years of him, Jake from State Farm, and even his fake twin brother, Cliff Paul. At this point, the man basically is the brand. But here's the twist. The new ad isn't really about him. It's all about everyone thinking he's about to retire. The whole idea is that people are constantly asking Chris Paul if he's finally done. I mean, he is 40 years old. He just got a 1-year, $3.6 million deal with the Spurs. Not the Clippers. Small correction there, but the point stands. So, yeah, that question is on everybody's mind. So, in the ad, you see Jake from State Farm try and dodge all these questions from random people. Even Chris Paul's own kid asks him if he's retiring. And then out of nowhere, who pops up? Caitlin Clark. She's looking right at Chris Paul, putting him on the spot, and basically grilling him about whether he's actually quitting. She asks him straight up, "Is it true? Are you retiring? You can tell me." The whole thing is actually pretty funny. Clark has this great playful vibe as she's trying to get the scoop. Almost like they're just old friends chatting in the gym. And the internet? Well, the internet went completely ballistic. Someone on X, which used to be Twitter, wrote, "You understand how much I love Caitlin Clark State Farm content." All in capital letters. That's the level of hype we're seeing. Another person posted, "New State Farm commercial with Caitlin Clark," and then added, "By the way, nobody cares if Chris Paul retires." Many thought he did already. Okay, maybe a little rough on CP3, but you see the bigger picture here. The real star of the Chris Paul retirement ad wasn't Chris Paul. It was Caitlin Clark, and she was only on screen for like 10 seconds. Now, let's really put this in perspective, because this is not Caitlin's first time working with State Farm. Not even close. She first signed with them back in October of 2023. That move made her the very first college athlete the company ever put on its official sports roster. Just think about that. State Farm's team had superstars like Patrick Mahomes and Chris Paul, giants of the NFL and NBA. And yet they decided a college women's basketball player was so important that she needed a spot right next to them. Her first commercials came out in November. One had her with reporter Jenny Taft in a coffee shop, and someone says, "I need a break." And all of a sudden, Caitlin is setting up a Big 10-game break. In another one, a couple hits a pole and Caitlin literally appears out of thin air with a basketball and says, "Need to take a shot." That one even had Jimmy Butler and Reggie Miller in it. Then just earlier this year, State Farm came out with what might be their most brilliant Caitlin commercial ever. The From the Logo campaign. The entire idea is so smart, built all around her famous, almost legendary move of hitting threes from the center court logo. In the ad, Caitlin says something like, "You know, Life would be easier if I could do everything from the logo. And what happens next is just pure marketing genius. Jake from State Farm literally shows up and starts painting the State Farm logo in different spots all over her house. This lets her open a stubborn pickle jar and even sort her laundry, all while standing on one of the new logos. It's just an incredibly smart and effective way to connect her unique talent directly to their brand. Caitlin Clark from the logo. You get it? This commercial was absolutely everywhere. It played constantly during the NBA playoffs and got a ton of airtime all through the WNBA season. And now with this new Chris Paul retirement spot, State Farm is making something totally clear. Caitlin Clark isn't just a person they hire for a few ads. She is a core piece of their entire marketing plan going forward. I mean, she's showing up next to a 21-year NBA veteran who's been the face of their company since 2008. That one fact tells you everything you need to know about how valuable they think she is. But this is where the story takes a really sharp and interesting turn. Because while Caitlin is out here landing these huge endorsement deals and starring in commercials with NBA icons, a much more serious fight is starting to boil over about whether WNBA players are actually getting paid what they truly deserve by the league itself. And that brings us right to the high-stakes drama of the CBA negotiations. This news has broken the internet. I kind of missed reporting on it yesterday, so we are going to do a little catch-up time here. Man. So, the headline was that the WNBA offered a $1.1 million supermax salary. But sources tell Front Office Sports that it is not what it seems. From my initial understanding, I told them to immediately sign this. That's before I read this article. Now I read a little bit of it. I ain't gonna lie to you guys. We are gonna go over the majority of it right here in this video. But supposedly, there's like a clause in the CBA negotiation. Basically, they have to meet certain criteria to make this one. If you haven't been following this story, let me catch you up real quick. The WNBA's contract with the Players Union, the CBA, is about to run out. The first deadline was October 31st, but they moved it to November 30th, which is now just 8 days away. A story broke earlier this week that sent shockwaves through the sports world. The WNBA had supposedly offered players a new deal with a max salary of over $1.1 million. Headlines were popping up everywhere, saying WNBA players could finally be millionaires and that this was a huge moment for the league. And look, I'll be real with you. When I first saw that number, I thought the same thing as everyone else. Sign the deal. That's 4 times the current supermax salary. It's a massive, game-changing raise. Why would they even hesitate? But then the real details started to leak out. And it turns out the WNBA was being pretty creative with its math. According to Front Office Sports, sources who know what's happening in the negotiations confirmed that those numbers were super misleading. Here's the real story. That $1.1 million figure, it's not a base salary. It's not even close. It's a complicated mix of the base pay plus potential revenue, sharing plus a whole bunch of performance bonuses. Under the actual deal on the table, no player could sign a contract in 2026 with a guaranteed base salary of $1.1 million. The real base supermax is likely somewhere between $800,000 and $850,000. Now, don't get me wrong, that's still a huge jump from the current $249,000 supermax, but it is not $1.1 million. So, how do you get to that magic number they were advertising? First, you need that $800,000 base. Then you have to win a WNBA championship, which gets you another 20 grand. You need to win league MVP. That's tough. Make the all WNBA first team, add another 10 grand. Being an all-star gets you 2 grand. Then you have to hit whatever revenue sharing goals the league sets. And by the way, the current CBA already has revenue sharing. And you want to guess how many times those goals have actually been met since the deal was signed? 0. Not once. The players aren't stupid. They know exactly what's up. Sophie Cunningham, a veteran guard, told Front Office Sports, "It sounds good, and they can also wave a big number in their face. But what happens when the business continues to go up?" The union's official response was even more direct. They called the league's offer lipstick on a pig. What the players are really asking for is a system where their pay is directly tied to a fixed percentage of league revenue. That's how the NBA does it, where players get about 50% of all basketball-related income BRI. In the WNBA, players reportedly get a tiny 9% of league revenue. 9%. This is all happening while the league is breaking records for TV ratings and attendance, while new teams are being sold for hundreds of millions, and while major sponsors are lining up. Speaking of which, Caitlin Clark is set to make less than $86,000 in base salary next season. She is without question the single biggest reason for the new interest in the WNBA in the league's entire history. She's selling out arenas, pulling in huge TV ratings, and she has massive deals with Nike, State Farm, and Gatorade, and her WNBA salary is peanuts. Io Wilson has been very outspoken about this, saying players like Caitlin just aren't able to earn what they actually bring into the league. Now, the league keeps saying they want to raise player pay. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert talks about transformational deals, but there's a massive disagreement on what transformational really means. The players want a guaranteed percent. The league want to offer uncapped revenue sharing, which sounds great until you realize the conditions to actually get it are almost never met. And in the middle of all this, other leagues are popping up to take advantage of the situation. Unrivaled just launched its first season. That's the 3-on-3 league founded by Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier. And now there's Project B, which plans to start in November. This one's wild. It's an international tour that's kind of like Formula One. Superstars like Alyssa Thomas, Jonquil Jones, and Jewel Lloyd have already signed on. The salaries in Project B are reportedly in the 7 figures, maybe even more than what the WNBA is offering. So what happens if the WNBA can't get a deal done? Everything stops. The expansion drafts can't happen. Free agency is frozen. The 2026 draft is on hold. Nobody wants a lockout. That would be a disaster, especially now with all this new momentum. But the players have been crystal clear. They will not take a deal that leaves them behind while the business is exploding. And here's the ultimate irony. Caitlin Clark is starring in State Farm commercials. She has an 8-year, $28 million deal with Nike, the biggest shoe deal in women's basketball history. She's making millions off the court. But her WNBA salary? It's pocket change compared to the value she creates. And the haters love to point this out. They say Caitlin gets all this attention and all these deals and claim it's not fair. But here's what they don't get. Caitlin didn't create this broken system. She's just navigating it. If the WNBA actually paid players what they were worth, Caitlin would be making way more money. And so would Io Wilson. So would Breanna Stewart. The problem isn't Caitlin's endorsements. It's that the league's entire pay structure is broken. And speaking of haters, let's talk about them. Lexie Hull, Caitlin's teammate, said in an interview with Glamour magazine, "There's a level of jealousy when it comes to the Fever just because of the media attention." She talked about hearing other teams and players talking trash about them, about how they have a massive target on their backs every single game. And honestly, that lines up with everything we've seen. Think about how Caitlin's been treated. Cheryl Swoops tried to discredit her records with stuff that wasn't even true. Diana Taurasi warned her about how tough the league would be in a way that felt personal. Some of the biggest names in the sport just couldn't bring themselves to celebrate what she was doing for the game. All while Caitlin has been nothing but respectful. She always gives credit to the players who came before her, but the haters just keep moving the goalposts. First it was, she can't do that in the WNBA. Then she won Rookie of the Year, and it had to be something else. Now every time she does something off the court like a State Farm commercial, certain people just can't take it. One fan said it perfectly. These WNBA fans are the most jealous, stupidest fans ever. It goes to show how good Caitlin is because she lives in their head. And look, not every criticism of Caitlin is wrong. No player is perfect, but the level of venom aimed at her is unlike anything we've seen for a rookie. So, as we watch the Chris Paul commercial and laugh at the retirement jokes, remember the bigger picture. Caitlin Clark is changing the economics of women's sports. She's forcing the WNBA to rethink its entire business model. And whether you love her or hate her, you can't deny that she is the engine driving this entire conversation. The next few weeks are going to be critical for the future of the league. Will they pay up or will they fumble the bag? We'll be watching.